Okay, so I'm going to do a quick demo of the process that we have. So let's get to it. So let's say that I've drawn my 24 illustrations. I haven't. I've drawn one, but it should be good enough. Here we have one. Okay, and then step 2, I'm going to scan my drawings, and I can use a chem scanning app if I want to for this project. Most of the time we want to use a proper scanner. Only use a camera scanning app if we say it's okay for the particular workflow. So I'm going to do that now, and let's. Okay, so now I've scanned it and then I just airdropped it to my computer. So what do I need to do next? Place each of your drawings into a new file in Illustrator. Use the pen tool to redraw your line drawings. This is your scan file. Okay, so I need to make a new file in Illustrator, which I'll do like this. Oop. So here I am in Illustrator. I need to make a new file, and I want to put all of my scan drawings in here, and I should have 24. So I'm going to go ahead and make 24 artboards, and I'm going to roughly estimate about how big I think my artwork is. Let's just go ahead and do 1000 pixels each. That would make it square. Depending on your scenario, you might need a different arrangement, but that's going to work for me. I'm going to do 24 artboards, and RGB screen is 72, so we're putting them on the web eventually, so that's totally fine, I think, in this case. So let's say okay, and there we go. So I'm now going to place my scan file, and if it says anything that's highlighted in a quote, that means it's an actual menu item. So I clicked on place, and I need to find my file, which is probably in my downloads folder. There it is, Surface Demo. Place. When I go to place something, there's this option to link it. Make sure that's unchecked. That way it'll put the actual artwork into the Illustrator file. If it's linked, it means it keeps it in a folder, and Illustrator looks into that folder to preview it to you, which is fine. But if you then moved the folder where everything was stored accidentally, all your links would be broken and your artwork would be missing. So make sure that that checkbox is not linked, and say place, and I get this sort of hovering vibe. I'm just going to go ahead and click, and not drag, just click it. And then because I see how it's scanned in and what size it is, I'm just going to go ahead and hold the shift key and scale it down so that it fits comfortably into that artboard the way I like it. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to actually trim this out a bit too. You don't have to, but like if your artwork is limited, I'm just draw a box over it. And then if you want to be able to see that box, let's make it red so you can see it. So I've just drawn a square, no big deal. And then let's make this a bit bigger. And then it's on top of my artwork. If I select both of them, press Command 7, it's a clipping mask, and it just clips everything else out. So now I'm going to scale that back up just a little bit. So there I have my artwork. I'm going to want to do this for all of my artwork. Also, you're going to want to consider your layers a bit. So this layer, I'm going to go ahead and put scan, because I know that's the image that I scanned. And then I'm going to make a new layer for my illustration so that I know I'm drawing on top of it. So what you'll do with each of your drawings is come in with a variety of different tools that you can choose. You can use a brush tool, and I'm drawing in, I want it to be a red stroke. This is the stroke and fill down here, so you can adjust that, swapping it if you want. If you double click on one, it brings up a color picker. I'm going to go ahead and draw with the brush tool and show you sort of how it works. So I'm just clicking and dragging and holding, and you know, for that kind of drawing, if you want it to remain a little bit quirky and stuff like that freehand, you can do that. If you have a Wacom tablet, you can use that at this stage of the game. That's totally fine. But for me, I'm going to tidy this up a bit. see how we go. Not totally, but I think I'll tidy it up a bit using the pen tool. I'm going to click on that corner and click over here, and it gives me a straight line, you can sort of see. And I could be even more hardcore about this if I want to be, and draw rectangles, which if I want it to be geometric, then I'll go ahead and draw rectangles for everything. So let's see what that would look like. Delete that point. So with the rectangle, let's say that I intended this to be a rectangular picture frame, which I did when I was originally drawing. So there is what it might actually look like. And I can draw another one inside that. And I want that one to be centered inside the other. Hold the Shift key, select both rectangles, and then align them to each other like that. And as I'm doing this, like, I can see that my drawing character is going to be a lot different. So as you go through this, you have to decide if you want your final drawings to have the wonky quality, like kind of, you know, handmade charm, or if you want them to have the precision of an Illustrator graphic. Either way is totally fine. It's up to you, but you'll have to make that choice. So I've done a few more lines here, as you can see, and now there's a couple things that are kind of interesting that I can show you how to do. I have a rectangle here that I want to mimic sort of a phone shape, so I'm going to round the corners on it, and as I hover over it, you can see I can click and drag and bring those in. I'm not going to worry about making it real perfect, but I think probably just like that is enough. If you want to see it, I can make the stroke a little bit bigger by clicking on the stroke over here and increasing that up to say 4 points, and then you can see it a little bit better. And if you want to see the progress you're making, you can click on your layers and you can turn off your scan layer. Whoops, I was drawing on the wrong layer. Don't do that. So how do I fix that? Well, let's select everything with Command A on the scan layer, and then let's deselect the image, which is back there, and then copy all that stuff, delete it, go to the illustration layer, and then Shift Command V, and that'll put everything exactly where it used to be. And so there we go. So now when I turn off the scan layer, I can see the drawing that I have, and it's shaping up to sort of look the way I want it to. I'm going to go ahead and center all these things this way so it's nice and precise. Not sure what those are extra. Oh, those are the lines that go to the corners. So I don't want to center those, do I? So let's take that one, holding the Shift key and selecting these bits, and I'll make that a group so that those are all one. Select all that, and now I should be able to center it, and now it starts to look a little bit better. So then the other thing that I know I need to do, just to give me a little guide, I need a little speaker up there. So if I click and hold on the rectangle tool, I can do a rounded rectangle tool right from the beginning. So I'll go ahead and do that and just drag that up there. My stroke again to be a little bit bigger so you can see it. There's 4 points. Let's just make all the stroke 4 points while we're at it. Make everything a little bit more chunky. And then I want a circle down here, so the same way I mouse over that and click and hold, then I see the ellipse tool, and I can come down here. Oh. I can click, and if I want, like if I have active things clicked, like things actively selected, I can, and I have my tool that I want to use. If I press Command, I can click off that selection so that it resets, and then I can choose to put my, now you're all like, this is an old iPhone, it doesn't have that anymore. But what's nice about it is at least it sort of like mimics that kind of thing. Well, I need another circle here, don't I? So let's draw another circle for my Bitcoin. Oh no, I should have made a Dogecoin. There you go. Now for the Bitcoin part, I guess I could put an actual Bitcoin symbol in there. Let's just fake one really quick. Let's get our type tool, Draw a box, put a capital B, select it, make it big. We want a nice chunky font. Let's use Avenir. Make it big, make it like 120. Yeah, something like that. Maybe heavy is a little too heavy. Maybe it should be bold. Bold's probably a little bit more realistic. And then I need a couple rectangles coming out the top. So I'm going to go ahead. There's a couple. You could do lines, you could do rectangles. I'm just going to do rectangles so I can get the width exactly the way that I want it. Maybe it's like that, but I want it to match. So Option, click and drag, and you can duplicate it. Man, tell me if it looks like this. I actually don't know. I might want to Google this before I get too far into it, but I'm not going to worry about it. For the moment, we're going to say that's exactly what it looks like. I think it's sort of more like that. This one, you can see, if I could click Z, and you can toggle the view using CPU to have your classic zoom where you click and drag. Once you do that, you can click on an object and then grab a handle and drag it, because I don't want it to stick out or have a gap there. I'm ready to go back. I press Command 0 and it brings me back to my main screen. So there we go. That's my Bitcoin symbol. It looks good to me. Before I do anything with it though, it's still typography. Like I can click on it and I can actually change it to something else, which I don't want to do. So before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and select it and go to type. It should be create outlines, and it makes that typography a shape. Then also, super cool, you can select that object and then go to your Pathfinder tool, which is probably on your menu. Mine is right up here, and if I click this one that says Unite, then it makes it all one shape now, which is cool. And I just need to scale that one down. And there we go. Let's double check and make sure that I'm working on the correct layer. And I am. So that's my Bitcoin artwork. I want that to be centered in the circle, so I'll go ahead and center it horizontally and vertically. And then I'm going to group it, because that's my coin. It's Command G makes that into one object. And then I'm going to go ahead and recenter like I did all the stuff before horizontally, and then that makes sure that everything is lined up like that. The Bitcoin looks a little off, so I'm actually going to move it a bit that way, scale it down a little bit more. That's pretty good. What if I just want that to not be filled and I just want it to be a stroke? Well, then I can just flip-flop it down here, and I want to set that to the same heaviness as everything else, and I want everything to be the same color, maybe. Yeah, but I want everything to be black, because this was just so that I could see it standing out. So I select everything, and then I want all the stroke to be black, and there we go. So now I have my I need a couple more things to add in there. I need the little bevels on this picture frame. I didn't do those yet. So let's get my pen tool and put those in. I'm doing those lines, and then instead of continuing, I'm going off the artboard, pressing Command and clicking to deactivate it. So I'm going off the artboard, pressing Command, clicking to deactivate that line. And then the same thing there. And if I want to get real particular about it, I can choose the the selection tool and select the object, hold the Shift key, select each of those 4 lines plus the inner rectangle, and Command G to group those. Okay, so now this picture frame operates as its own frame, right? Yeah, fine. Done. You can go and add more detail if you want to, but pretty much this is all you need for what we're trying to do. So the next thing that I need to do is to make a new Illustrator file with 72 artboards, 6 rows, 12 columns. Okay, this is my scan file. Once I've drawn all the scanned images that I made using the pen tool, it should basically look like this. I should have a layer which says scan and a layer which is illustration. The scan layer should have my drawings, and the illustration layer should have my illustrations. And then I should save this one. Shift Command S to save as. And let's go ahead and put it where it is. Say Surface Demo 1. Let's do it more accurately to what you're going to do. It's Surface space F21 Davis. Actually, let's do this. Let's do scans Davis. Which project? Let's say this is the back to school scans, and then last name is the last thing. So I save that as an Adobe Illustrator file, save, say OK, leave it as default, no problem, done. Then make a new Illustrator file with 72 artboards, 6 rows, 12 columns. So File, New, and the artboard size will depend on the size of your illustrations, however you did them in your original scanned file, right? So mine is at 1000 pixels square. I'm going to just leave it like that, but I need 72 artboards this time. And I specified, didn't I, that it should be 6 rows and 12 columns. Doesn't matter why we're asking you to do that. Try and do it. So I see that I have 72 artboards. Okay, so I went down here and I clicked on more settings because it's just not enough for me. So I go, number of artboards is 72, spacing 20 pixels, that's fine probably. It goes across and down in numbering. You can see that's the feature that's right there. And then my width is there, pixels is what I'm using, don't need to worry about that. This all looks pretty good, but what I see here is really key. 12 columns. How many columns do I need? 6 rows, 12 columns. If I have 12 columns and I have 72 artboards, how many will be in each row? Perfect. So I create the document. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 columns. Perfect. I've done it. Next. Choose your 6 favorite illustrations. Copy and paste them individually into one of each of the 6 artboards in column 1. Align them to the center of the artboard. Okay, so what are you saying? I'm saying that you need to take the illustration, just the illustration, not the scan part. So you can see I have it locked and turned off over here. I'm only taking the illustration artwork. I'm going to Command C that artwork, okay? And then I'm going to come over here to my new file. I'm going to click on that first artboard, and I'm going to Command V. Whoop, didn't do it. Let's Shift Command V, and it does it. So if you Command V, it'll put it in the center of the document. If you Shift Command V, it will put it in the center of that artboard, or at least it'll put it with the same coordinates you had before. So I'm going to, if I'm satisfied with this artwork the way it is, I'm just going to select it all and Command G. That groups all that artwork, so it's easier to move it around without losing bits and parts. So now I can select with one click the whole artwork and align it, because that's the next thing it says, align them to the center of the artboard. So I go to my Align tool, and there's this option here which says Align to Selection or Align to Artboard. Align to Artboard means it's going to move it around based on the edges of the artboard. Selection means the things you have selected will center amongst themselves, whatever that looks like. So this will be the vertical center as well, and there we go. So done. What's next? So now my goal is to take this artwork by clicking and dragging with my selection tool, select it all, Command C to copy it, and then I want to go to the next artboard by clicking on it and then pressing what? Shift Command V. Whoop, didn't do it. Why didn't it do it? Try it again if at first you don't succeed. So Command C, Shift Command V, did it. Don't know. Okay, so this takes the exact position of this artwork and puts it in the next artboard in the exact same position relative to the artboard, which means that if you start to make an animation, it's not going to shift at all. It's going to be precisely the same place. So the idea here is that now I can make adjustments to this artwork, and those artworks, the adjustments that I make to this artwork, will reflect throughout the animation. So anything I move will move frame by frame. It's a step frame animation. So what do I want to move? Goodness, I have no idea. Well, for the sake of this demo, let's do something sort of quick so that it's not too complicated. If I want to get inside a group, I double click a group. So I've selected my Bitcoin. So this is frame 2, right? So I'm just going to scale that Bitcoin down. I can do that a few different ways. I think the way that I want to do it, because it's easier, it's more natural for me, is just to hold the Shift key, which keeps everything in proportion, and then just scale it down a bit. And then again, I want to center it. And center it, whoops, center it that way, and then go on. So that's one thing that I've done. Another thing that I can do is maybe I want to shift my frames. Why not? So let's take this frame, let's move it just a titch that way. And then let's take the phone, which we also need to group the inside frame of the phone plus the circle. So I'm holding Shift to collect all these things together and group them. And then I'm going to shift it the other way. What if it would shift like that? Yeah, let's just see what we get. So then once I've done that, I'm going to select all that artwork, copy it, go to the next artboard, Shift Command V, and paste it in there. And then I'm going to continue one more time to continue that motion just a little bit like that. And I want my Bitcoin to get smaller. Center it. And then I'm going to start, so then I'm going to select it again. If it groups like this, Shift Command G to ungroup it. That was because I pasted it while it was grouped. Before you copy and paste it, it's a good idea to regroup it so that you have it all correct. But Shift Command G will ungroup things, pretty sure. If you're not ever unsure, you can go to Object, Ungroup, and it's Shift Command G. So the shortcuts are always listed for you. It's so much easier to use shortcuts, obviously. So Command C, go to the next artboard, Shift Command V, and I get it exactly where it was. Now I'm going to start moving my frames back. So this frame, I'm going to move it, oh, too much, I have to get in the group. Move this frame back a bit, move this phone over this way. Too much? It's probably fine. Shrink my Bitcoin. Center it. And then go out of it and copy. Shift Command V to paste, etc. And I think you get it from here on. This is how it all goes. Now, there's lots of other ways you can animate too. One thing I noticed that's happening as I'm scaling down is that my stroke looks fatter and fatter, doesn't it? So I don't like the way that looks, and if I would probably go back and redo the Bitcoin in each frame because I want the stroke to scale down with my image. So if I want that to happen, I press Command K to bring up some preferences, and you can see here it says scale, strokes, and effects. So if you're doing anything with scaling and you want to keep the proportion of black to white relationship, then you need to click that box. And so let's undo what I did a little bit ago, and let's make sure that's still scale, strokes, and effects. Okay, and now when I scale this down, it scales the stroke down as well. And I think in the end that's gonna look, it's gonna look better. Yeah, I forgot to move this one. Talking to you guys. Oh. So if you forget what you've done, you can kind of go back and look. And it's not much, you know. I don't even know if it's going to be cool. That's the other thing about it. Like, this looks like that's gone. Okay, cool. And you just practice with it until you get something that you're excited about. Whoops. If you press Shift Option Command V, it'll paste the artwork on every artboard. That's not what you want. You want Shift Command V, and it does it in just the one that you have active. And this is the last one I'll do. How many more do I have to do? Alright, I'll fill it out. Hang on. Okay, so I continued my illustration just a little bit and sort of finished it up, I guess. It doesn't loop right now, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So now that we've done that, and so like at some point my Bitcoin gets small enough that the screen goes black and it fails. Okay, so once I get to this frame should in this case it'll restart the animation. So you'll do this process for each of your drawings, but then I'm going to look at my setup and do the next step, which is to export, right? So exporting the frames, which are the artboards, as JPEGs and upload them to GIF Maker, okay? So how to export? So I want to know I need to know the numbers of each of my frames because I only want to export the ones for this particular animation. All right, so let's go and go to Document Setup, Edit Artboards, and it shows me the numbers here. This is just, there's many ways to do this. This is one way. Artboard 1, 2, 3, all the way through artboard 12. Well, doesn't that just make sense? So I go to File, Export, Export As. Okay, make sure you do Export As, and let's call this. We'll call this Surface Space F21. Always. Back to School. Fail. PNG. Davis. So I'll put that into a folder. Let's make a new folder here. That's the Surface Space F21 Back to School, so that I know all that stuff. I'll put all the assets into that folder, and then because I'm going to have 6 different animations with 12 frames each, I need to stay pretty organized. I need to name things in such a way that it makes sense to me and that I can refer back to it and I can make changes if I need to. So within that folder for Back to School, I'm going to make a new folder that's Surface, always, Space, because you're going to have other classes too, and it's F21, and so you know when you are, and then you can say Back to School Fail frames, and that's important so that everything goes into there. It's saying PNG. I said JPEG. Could be either. We'll go ahead and do JPEG, and we say use artboards. It's important that you tick that box. If you don't, you'll get it wrong. Range 1 through 12. Export. RGB is the color mode. It'll do that if you have it set up for web already, but if you don't, make sure it says RGB. Screen 72 is fine. And say OK. Done. And it'll export it for you. Then we're going to hop over to GIF Maker and upload it. So point your handy dandy browser of choice to gifmaker.me. upload images. My images are on the fail frames folder. I should have 12 of them. Let's grab it and see what we get. It uploads them pretty quickly, previews the animation up here, and the animation speed is here. So let's see what we get when we change this to say 200. Right now it's running backwards. Okay, so there's a few things that I see that I don't necessarily like and a few things that I see that I do like. Let's go ahead, create the GIF animation so we can see it a little bit better. It'll put it together at the speed that you set. Let's view it. It opens it here. Things that I like the idea that it goes from, I like the frames moving. It seems fine. I think I would add movement to the inner frame. It should also move. I don't think I like the scaling of the Bitcoin, but maybe I want the Bitcoin to flash instead, so I can put some little lines making it look like shiny Bitcoin, and then it's just going to fail. I like the fail, but I don't want the fail to go up. I want it to go down, so I need to change the way that I do that because of the way the frames are numbered. And then it goes back to the beginning. I think it's totally fine, actually, like that. So generally I'm pretty happy. I'm going to go make those changes and then move on. Okay, so I've made the adjustments to the document that I want. It's not perfect, but I think it'll be a little bit more clear because I'm having a bit of a narrative in my animation. So you may not have a narrative and a meaning in yours, and it's totally fine. So then I exported it again. If you want to export and overwrite the other ones, you go to export as. You remember which frames are which. Choose the title so that you know you've written it the same way, but get rid of the number that's on the end of it. Again, use artboards, keep the range the same, say export, all the settings the same, and say OK, and it says it's going to replace it. If it doesn't say that, then you're making new files and you can get confused really quickly. So once that's done, you can hop over to GIF Maker and upload your stuff. And I've done that, and so this was before, and it's kind of a fail. It's okay, it's not bad. But I see there's a little, the only thing and so this is the new one. It's not running quite right, but it will do. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Let's say that it's good enough. So then I'm going to download this GIF image. I'm actually going to download the other one as well, just because I want to have both of them in my process archive so I can show that. And then I'm going to move on to the next step of the project. Okay, so this part's a little bit tricky maybe because it's the difference between save as and save. So we're going to go to Illustrator. Let's say that I have all my illustrations done. Everything's the way that I want it. I'm going to go ahead and save my file, and I'm going to name it like this. I'm just going to put it surface space F21 back to school. I'm going to call it Davis, and then I think I specify in here that I should save it as illustrations. Okay, so that's all my illustrations. You could call it animations too, but there you go. Let's move that so that it's illustrations with my name as the last. So Davis AI, and save that into my project folder. So save, say OK. Before I do anything else, I'm going to Shift Command S or save as, and this is going to give me an opportunity to do a modified version of this document without overwriting it. So I'm going to put an underscore and I'm going to put color. So now I save that one, say OK, and if we look in the Finder quick, we'll see that we have the illustrations color and we have illustrations. Right now they're identical documents, but I'm about to go into this one and color it. How do I want to color it? Well, it's probably the easiest way to color. You can fill any shapes by changing the stroke and the fill. I can even just swap it and see what happens. But if I select that object and go to Object, live paint make, then it converts it to a live paint object, and I can use my K key or somewhere over here. If I click on the shape builder tool, I can choose the live paint bucket, and it shows me my swatches, whatever default swatches I have here. And if I scroll to the left, you can see it's going up there and it's changing here. So now if I click, when it highlights on something, if I click it, let's say that I want to make this frame green. A little bit of money, money, money. Yeah, so something like that, let's say. Let's zoom in a bit so you can see. And then I want to make the background here orange, and I want to make the phone, I want to make the phone black, don't I? Yeah, the phone should be black. And then the screen, let's make this screen something really cool, like a gradient blue. That's not cool at all. What about this one? This one's kind of nice. Fine, whatever. And I can animate these colors as I go. I may not want to, depending on how complex it starts to become, but definitely I want this to be sort of a gold color, let's say like that. And then we can make the Bitcoin itself like pink. I want this frame to be a color. Why not? So anyway, my colors are hideous. I've never seen worse colors. It's not possible to do color worse than I've just done it, but that's okay. So anyway, now you have a colored illustration just by clicking through it, and you can go and do the same. So it makes sense. Like if you're going to animate the color, then you're going to want to think about having the right number of shades and things like that in your swatches. Any color you want to make, if you double click on one, so I want the shade to change for the background. Okay, so I like this bluish background, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to select all of these. I think I won't. I'll just do them one by one. So I select it, go to Object, Live Paint, Make, and it makes a live paint object. I'm going to hop back onto my bucket, and I like this RGB cyan as my background, but I want it slightly different maybe. So I can double click that one and then adjust the color here however I want it to adjust and say okay, but then it's not over here anymore. Okay, so I want to, if I want to use that over and over, then I just need to move it over into my swatches, and probably I want to put it right next to the other cyan, RGB cyan swatch, so I can toggle between that one and that one. One is bright and one is less bright, and maybe each one I want to progressively get dimmer and dimmer, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. So like that, you'll go and make a colored version, and then you'll have a final GIF like that. So that's basically it. There's really, I don't think anything else to add to it except to say it's not easy. You'll find all kinds of issues as you go. Learning how to use the direct selection tool, the regular selection tool, the pen tool, the brush tool, the shape tool, the shape builder tool if you want, the pathfinder, the align palette, the stroke adjustment, the fill adjustment, the swatch palette. All these things are things you need to know. You need to know how to export. You need to know file formats. You need to know resolution, artboards, pasting, placing, saving as, titling, and file management.